Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Sewing Report. I'm Jennifer Moore, helping you discover your love of sewing. I have a special guest with me right now. This is fellow sewing vlogger Lisa Emerita, and we just thought it would be fun to have kind of a sewing chat. I'm just gonna ask Lisa a little bit about her sewing background, and we're just gonna chat about some things going on in the sewing world. So hopefully this is something you enjoy. Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to the Sewing Report for everything sewing and maybe a little bit of making. We'll see. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me right now.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
I know this is exciting for us, and just a little backstory. We've been trying to do this for like a couple weeks, and I don't know, the universe hasn't been wanting us to do it, but we're here right now, and I've got a cat in my lap, so and I'm sick, so what better time?
I know. I think but like I said, if we waited for the perfect time, it would not happen because
exactly
my schedule is impossible.
Well, Lisa, I wanted to ask, you have some pretty advanced seamstress skills. How did you originally get into sewing?
I started sewing when I was a very little girl. When I was 7 years old, my grandmother we moved into a double block with my grandmother. So we were on one side of the house, my grandmother was on the other side, and she set up her sewing machine in the room that we used to hang out in when we were over at her house. And she taught me how to use that machine, and I've been sewing ever since then when I was 7. And I started making like pillowcases because it's just a rectangle, and I made like a bunch of them, and then I would fill them with tissues like for my stuffed animals and stuff. But then my grandmother on my other side, my mother's mother, my Nana, taught me how to sew doll clothes, and I started doing that. And then when I was a teenager, she taught me how to make like clothing with a pattern from the store, and we went through the whole process. And I've always been driven by I became immediately like, every time I made something, I became more and more driven to make it look like something you could buy at a store. And that's why basically what's gotten me to be here today, because for years it was like I would make a garment and then I would be like, well, this still isn't right, or this still isn't right. And I just kept doing that and doing that until I eventually found an apparel production program that studies apparel production program. Isn't like fashion design. I actually went to fashion design school right out of high school, and I dropped out almost immediately because fashion design and sewing are like actually completely different things. And if you go into a fashion design and go get a fashion degree, the likelihood of you ending up sewing, whereas I find sewing to be the most important skill set, and without sewing we wouldn't have clothes at all, of course, it's actually not something you're going to end up doing in the industry for a job. So apparel production, the program that I was in, is actually like garment industry techniques, production. I took a fashion entrepreneurship class, which is like small business planning skills. So that's really when I kind of got to the place where I could make clothing that looked like professional, that came out of a store.
That's really interesting you say that. I guess it does make sense with the fashion design differences, because it seems like they design the clothing, but then they have someone else execute their design. So that's an interesting way to put it. And again, I've never gone to fashion school, so really good insight.
Well, if you want to be, a lot of people, I think it's kind of strange because a lot of people go to fashion design because they want to be a fashion designer, you know what I mean? Like they want to be Dior or whatever. And like I never wanted to live in New York City. I never wanted to be, it's like a completely different thing from being a dressmaker, working from home, taking clients on a one-on-one basis, taking the entire process from sketches to fabrication to pattern making to fitting, is way different from any of the jobs that you're going to have in the fashion industry. And it's a cutthroat industry, and it's competitive, and it's very, I have an issue with the fashion industry because it's very wasteful. It's very, like fashion shows are like, will build a waterfall in a venue, you know what I mean, for a fashion show that's a day. Like I think that it's very easy to be into designing clothes and making clothes, and for your values to conflict greatly with the entire fashion industry as a whole. So,
and you did a really interesting video where you talked about sustainable fashion, which I really found interesting. And that's kind of the way I'm going too, that I don't want to, perpetuate this I don't want to support the fast fashion industry. And I think a lot of people who are getting into sewing feel the same way. Would you say that?
yeah, I mean, I've heard some people say, it seems like some people have said they feel guilty for buying clothes after learning how to make clothes. And I don't think that's necessarily the right sentiment, because I think that, like I did say in that video, going towards sustainable fashion, the way to do that is not to suggest that everyone make their own clothing, because that is the least realistic route you could go. I mean, I want there to be options, and I think that's actually the problem with the fast fashion industry, because people buy organic grocery, because when they go to the grocery store, there's a $3 carton of eggs that has antibiotics, and the chicken are raised in someone in an enormous basement somewhere, underground bunker where they have no light. Everyone knows how bad it is, and right next to that pack of eggs is a free range organic version for $1 more. That's your option. You can do that. Or vegan. There's a ton of people are vegan because it's cruelty free to animals, and there's vegan options. There's really no option. You have no idea in fashion where the clothes are coming from. You have no idea, what's sustainable and what's not. And if you want sustainable fashion, I mean, consumers are not going to work that hard. You know what I mean? They are not going to go on a hunt and do the research. And I think that people who are sewing their own clothes are invested in the fast fashion, revolution, because for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's in line with what they're doing. You know what I mean? It completely goes along with the direction that they're already going, and it's in the same direction. So of course they're going to be for it. But also, when you start to make clothes, you realize the value and how much work goes into it, and that it should be something that people value more and care for more. And your own clothes, you're not going to throw that in a pile and never wear it and donate it in 5 months, which is what people. I mean, clothing is a throwaway item, and in America, I don't know if it's the same in the UK. You'll have to let me know if you get that sense too. But in America, people act like they have no idea how clothing is made whatsoever. Like, people look at things that I've made and they're like, you made that? You made a t-shirt? Like I'm a magician. When in actuality, and I tell people this, a person made every article of clothing you've ever seen in your life. A person did that.
Yeah, right now there are no machines actually sewing the clothes together.
It's people, and it's people who have a skill set. I mean, I'm widely regarded as an expert in sewing, and the people who are making clothes that are $5, their skill set vastly outpaces mine, and their efficiency vastly outpaces mine, and the value on their life is a fraction of what it would be in America. You know what I mean? So I think I think that at some point, the fast fashion brands that are now taking a dive completely, because retail is kind of getting dicey as far as location and competition with things online. The brands are going to realize that this is the last get out of jail free card that they have, that as soon as someone raises a flag saying, we are doing, sustainable fashion and check out our, factories that are better than that guy, as soon as someone does that and charges more, they're going to realize that giving people the option, people will take the option to do what's right. And especially with minimalism now, minimalism is a huge trend, and people are like, oh, I'm a minimalist, so check out my minimalist wardrobe. And it's like sweaters from Forever 21, and it's like, that isn't really in line with minimalism. Because if you're only going to have 15 garments on your rack, you want those to be like good.
Yeah, you want them to be good quality items, and the stuff you see at Forever 21 or all those other places, they're not even like. And after you start sewing, you start to see the quality differences. Or I think the thing I hate is when you go and you see $100 dress and it's made out of polyester.
Yeah.
That
And
drives me
that's the other,
crazy.
it's like completely mind-boggling to me that there are all of these inconsistencies and there are all these things that are counterintuitive. You can follow someone who's an enormous lifestyle brand with millions of followers, and they're all about animal cruelty, and they've got vegan lip products, and they've got vegan food and everything. And then they're talking about their wardrobe, and they're like, I got this from Zara. And it's like, do you know anything about Zara? Zara is Satan.
Yeah. That is such a good point. Like the people who are all for, human rights and animal rights, I don't think they really understand the industry very well. And the more
Nobody
you
has
learn
any
about it,
idea.
the
And a lot
more it
of
really,
really expensive stuff, like you would think luxury brands,
yeah,
what you're paying for, you're not paying for the people who make the clothing to be paid a living wage or to be living in a humane work environment. You're paying for an enormous ad campaign. You're paying for the shareholders to make a ton of money, for the CEO to take a ton of money, for them to open up 300 more stores this year or whatever. You know what I mean? Your money is not going towards something to be more sustainable. And I think it's only a matter of time. I mean, I think it's still amazing that we've gotten this far into the ethical business world and this far into the arts and crafts movement, and the last stone uncovered is still the garment industry. But I have faith that someday, it has to happen.
And isn't it crazy the price disparity of handmade items? Like when people ask you to make them something, they do not understand the difference between what you're doing and what Walmart is doing or what Forever 21 is doing.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the problem because people don't know. They have no idea. That people are extremely confused about, or not confused, just, I hate to use the word ignorant because I think that it's like a negative word, and I don't think that I don't want to demonize people who just don't know. And I think that it's an education problem. It's an information problem. One of the things that I said earlier about, I think that people in the UK, I don't think they have the same transparency issue that we have in America. People in America genuinely know nothing about like sewing or how clothes are made or the supply chain. I think that people in the UK learn how to sew in school, and they talk about like the GESEs or GCSE or whatever that is, and you can do sewing as a coursework option. So there's a considerable amount of the community in European countries that have some kind of idea, and that I think that's why sewing is so much bigger over there.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing people will say is, when they hear I sew, they're like, oh, I watched Project Runway. Project Runway and what we're doing is pretty different even still. Like you were saying, fashion design is still much different than sewing. So I think there's just this whole culture of maybe being uninformed that people just literally don't know. And that's why I started this channel, was because I was kind of tired of talking to people about sewing and having their eyes glaze over and having them be like, what?
Yeah, that's why I appreciate this channel too, because you have your background is like investigative, and you know how to disseminate information and deliver information in ways that are digestible for, the American consumer, which is who watches the news, which is the industry that you've been in for years. And that is exactly what we need. I mean, we need people to understand not only what's at stake and what's going wrong, but just the inside of it, how it works and the value. And to what you said about, the people not understanding what it costs and the cost of making things that are sewn, and asking people, I mean, that's the enormous gap right now, because it costs a lot. And I mean, I'm in bridal, and there are two reasons why I'm in bridal, because the first is it's the only demand that there is for handmade clothes. I mean, people don't want handmade clothes to wear unless it's their wedding gown, or maybe like some children's items for really special occasions. But also it's really the only way to make money if you're sewing gowns, you know what I mean? Because
they're actually willing to pay real money.
It's the only thing people are willing to pay the actual
special occasion. Yeah.
And I think that that is like the problem. We have to come somewhere in the middle. And the truth of the matter is that is what's going to change the industry, because cotton is becoming more expensive. Mm-hmm. Overseas labor is becoming more expensive. China is now so developed. I don't know if people know. I mean, people think that, everything coming from China is like cheap and it's like it's not. The best manufactured items in the world, the highest quality, is coming from China. I mean, they know what they're doing and they have the technology, and it's incredible. And you should read that book. If you're watching this, you should read the book Overdressed, because I think that when I talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
I assume that everyone has read that book. Like, that's
In confession, I still have not read it, but I've heard you recommend it quite a few times.
You know what? I listen to audiobooks when I'm sewing, and if you're still sewing a lot, you could probably knock through that book pretty quickly if it's on audiobook. I don't know if it is.
That's a really good suggestion. Yeah, because sometimes it's hard to read something, and I do listen to a lot of podcasts. So yeah, everybody, I'll link it below, but Overdressed, it is a book Lisa has recommended, and I'm sure it must come in an audio form.
I hope so. Well, they go in depth into the manufacturing industry in China, and it's fascinating if you're interested in how clothing is made. But it's becoming more expensive to have things made there. And there are manufacturers that are producing, going back to producing in America and going back to having garments constructed in America. And it's like the equilibrium is coming back to a point where it's getting more expensive over there. So, especially considering if you want to have something made, the time to have it shipped back and forth, and the language barrier to talk with them, and you have to hire someone to create the tech pack that is going to work in a manufacturer over there. So it's getting to a point where making stuff here is going to make a little bit more sense. I don't think for t-shirts and socks and stuff like that that's going to need to be pumped out at enormous numbers. I don't know if that's ever really going to come back. But America's known for cotton. I mean, Italy is known for leather, and, England is known for silk, or I'm not sure, I forget which is which, but I know that America is known for cotton. I mean, we have the cotton crop. So things are going to start leveling out to where garments are going to start to get expensive to a point that at some point it is going to be financially viable to have things handmade.
Yeah, and I would just love to see more people sewing, or at least learning about sewing. What do you think it would take for more people to be interested?
Well, when I compare it to other things that kind of really get a huge momentum going, I mean, people aren't drinking Bud Light anymore. They're drinking craft beers, and it's way more expensive, but it's like a whole culture that goes along with it. So someone has to make it cool, and I don't know how that happens. I kind of live under a rock, so I don't really know how these things take off. But I mean, I guess we can say that micro-influencers and media influencers and social media have a lot to do with it. So as soon as it becomes cool, I mean, everyone's drinking smoothies right now. As soon as having something handmade, or just even having things tailored.
Yeah.
People don't do that. If something doesn't fit, you just throw it in the trash, or I don't know what people do because I don't buy clothes, but it has to become a trend for people to think that it's cool and for people to do that. And then there has to be more information about how to do what I do. You know what I mean? I don't think that being a dressmaker is something that people understand. If I say I'm a dressmaker, no one knows what that means.
No.
And a dressmaker is something that 100 years ago or 150 years ago, everybody had one. It was ubiquitous. If you had clothing, you had a dressmaker. And in just a few generations, it's become literally a word that is, obsolete in our vernacular because, people just don't even know. People don't use it. So
have you seen the movie The Dressmaker?
I did see that.
What did you think of it?
I liked the beginning of it. It made me laugh in a couple of parts, but I really hate sad endings.
Yeah, that one, it wasn't quite an uplifting movie, but I did really enjoy seeing her process of, she's got all these beautiful fabrics, and I did feel like it was a little bit helpful as far as furthering our cause of understanding, maybe, because you could sort of see what she was doing.
Yeah, and there was a competing dressmaker too. Yeah. I loved that in that movie because it kind of shows, how that kind of dynamic works, and how, that different dressmakers can fill different needs, and that there's space for it. Because I think that if you want to be a dressmaker, first of all, if you have any idea what a dressmaker is, if you want to be a dressmaker, it probably is intimidating to think, how are you going to make money?
Well, and I do want to ask, I did see Kate Winslet had actually mentioned she learned to sew for the movie.
Really?
Yeah, so I saw an interview. It was actually kind of cool, and I feel like it's stuff like that might make sewing cool. Like when you see a
Yeah.
celebrity who sews, or Jennifer Lopez's daughter is into sewing, and I've seen her talk about that in a few interviews. And I think it's just little things like that when you see famous people or you see like people you look up to actually doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe
If
that's what
someone
it would take.
influential, if a group of people influential started to have clothing custom made, I don't understand why this isn't a thing already. I mean, you design it yourself, you pick the
Yeah.
fabric. Wouldn't people love to do that? I
Yeah,
can't.
it's like couture, but it's stuff you could actually possibly afford.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
imagine why people do. I mean, obviously, it's my whole life, so obviously, I think it's awesome. But I mean, like I said, it baffles me that that it is the way that it is now. And I think the only explanation that I can think of is that people don't know any other way and people
Yeah.
don't understand. But you know, we're watching a huge sewing community grow, like literally right now.
Yay.
So,
Well, and that
would,
leads me to ask you, what made you want to start a YouTube channel?
um, I just saw. I was actually looking for a sewing community on Instagram and on YouTube for a long time because I actually, again, I was surprised that one didn't exist already. I started watching YouTube. For a long time, I didn't understand what YouTube was. I know I really didn't get it. I thought it was like cat videos and people getting hit in the balls. Like, you know, I thought it was like America's Funniest Home Videos.
That's what I thought when it first came out. It was going to be America's Funniest Home Videos online.
Yeah. But then when I actually saw my sister, it was probably 3 years ago. My sister was watching Graveyard Girl and I was like, I didn't get it at all. And she was like, well, you know, she makes videos and I watch them. And I realized at that point, like, oh, it's like a show. And then probably a year after that is when I actually started watching them because I saw an article about Zoella, who had 2 million followers at the time. She now has like 9 million or 10 million probably at this point, that she got a book deal from YouTube. And she used to do fashion hauls. So that's why I started watching YouTube. And my sister and my mom, for the longest time, my mom loves Candy Johnson. She loves the hair tutorials and the makeup tutorials. My mom and my sister, for the longest time, said, you should have a YouTube channel. And I was like, what am I going to do? A diaper haul? Like, you know, what am I going to have a channel about? I said, I would love to do fabric hauls and sewing videos. I think that would be cool. And my sister said, well, is there an audience for that? And I said, no, you know, I've looked. I would do it anyway. I don't care. But it was that was the winter before February of that year, I think 2016. And that is when Lisa Comfort started her channel. Mm-hmm. And because she has a store where she teaches sewing and she sells fabric and patterns and she has a pattern line, there's like this blossoming group in London of people who are making YouTube videos. And then from that, people all over the world started making YouTube videos, the same format, the fabric hauls and the monthly make videos. And I'm not the kind of person who jumps into something like that. Like, I waited so long to start an Etsy shop that Etsy actually like came and went. Like the bell curve of Etsy's like lifetime of that trend came and went while I was like trying to perfect my business plan to have an Etsy shop. So it's more my way to second guess and doubt myself and kind of hold myself back for a really long time. But I saw Lisa Comfort and I saw all the other videos, and the next day I started filming my first YouTube video.
Right.
That wasn't my first YouTube video because I actually had to film that 3 times before I could actually get footage out of it and edit it. But
so I have to say there's a few things I really like about your channel, and I wanted to share this with you. You are so genuine in the videos. Like, I don't like watching YouTubers that I can't relate to or that I feel are trying to be too perfect. And I really like that you are truly keeping it real. I think that's something I try to do too, because I know some of these people claim they're trying to be aspirational, but I think sometimes it can go way too far in the other direction. And the other thing I love about your videos is that you're truly telling a story. I've watched some of your sewing studio vlogs, and I just really like how you go from start to finish with the process. And it's not just like a haul video, or it's not just like a tutorial, but you have a real gift for storytelling through video.
Thank you. Well, I actually had a friend tell me that, and that's the first time that I started thinking of it that way, because she said that she watches my videos, and I said, yeah, I worry about my videos because I don't know, they don't really fit into sewing community videos, but I don't know who else would watch it, because who would want to listen to me talk about sewing? And she said, I watch your videos because I think of it as storytelling. And that was the first time that I actually started to look at it that way. And I think I have a desire for that, like a passion for that anyway. When I dropped out of fashion design school, I studied literature for 3 years and creative writing, and I love writing, and that's another passion that I have. And it's really crazy that I started making these videos, and it's sort of integrating some talents that I already have, and then sort of uncovered something that I find really fun that I had no idea about. Like, I didn't even think, and this is why I'm saying it's crazy that I even started a channel, because if I had thought about it for 5 minutes, I would have been like, the equipment, like, I don't know how to use a computer. I really don't know how to use a computer. Like, I don't use technology for anything. I avoid technology at all costs. So getting into something that is so equipment and technical and equipment heavy, I never would have thought that I could do it. But you know, every video that I made for the first 6 months went horribly wrong in some way, and I learned a big lesson. You know, one of the lessons that I needed to learn, I learned it from all of those videos. And it's now something that I've really integrated into my process, because doing dressmaking projects back to back can be very difficult. When I'm on a deadline, I'm kind of on edge. It makes me kind of irritable, stressful. But making videos is just like, it's almost like where I decompress from the project. And it's kind of amazing. I sort of can't imagine not doing it now, because when you're in the moment and I'm doing it, it's very difficult to, you know, really take in what's happening or see what I'm doing. But then when I go over the footage after the fact, it's the first, I'm really seeing it happen. You know, seeing it happen from a different perspective is like seeing it happen for the first time, and appreciating what happened and really taking a minute to, you know, actually take it in and reflect and think about it, and think about, what did I learn from this garment, and would I do that again, or how would I do that differently, or seeing things from a different angle, like, oh, that looks like that, or whatever. It's really incredible, and I suggest people do it, because no matter what you do, because I think that it just enhances the whole experience so much more to do it. And the videos are just a byproduct at this point, you know what I mean? I get the footage while I'm making it, and then, you know, it's another creative process to turn that video into something else. And like you said, to turn it into a narrative and to tell a story.
Well, I think that what you're doing is wonderful, and I really like your I really, really respect your originality. You're not copying anyone else. You're truly doing what you're doing, and I think there is an audience for it, even outside of sewing. I like to watch a lot of other videos just to see the making process. Like, I'll watch woodworking videos, or videos of, I've been doing watching a lot of cookie decorating videos. I don't even decorate cookies.
And
But
cake decorating.
oh,
That's why I started making the videos that I make, because that's what I watch. I watch, you know, on Instagram, I'm watching hula hoopers and cake decorating and cookie decorating.
exactly. You just
Sewing is like so good for that kind of, like, I mean, watching it happen, like, there's all kinds of, I mean, that's why people watch Project Runway, not because they care about sewing.
And not because they want to sew, but just because they want to watch someone else sew.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. And, you know, seeing something get taken from a 2D, like from a flat piece of fabric, to a 3D garment, you know, in different colors and shapes, and then someone wearing it, it's like an incredible process to watch. Just like anything else. Like, I don't want to hula hoop, but watching someone do it is awesome.
Exactly. Well, I want to talk about YouTube. Last week, YouTube changed its policy for new channels. I wanted to get your take on this. Do you feel like it's going to discourage new YouTubers from entering?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for it, the kind words that you've said about my channel, and for actually supporting me from the beginning. I remember when we both started talking, we had like 300 followers each.
Yeah, we were really small. And it takes so much time to grow on YouTube. I think that's something people don't understand unless you do it.
I mean, I think it's very discouraging, not necessarily the details of the changes, because like you said when we were talking about it, like, people are going to say, well, if you're doing it for the money, then you shouldn't be doing it anyway, like on that small of a scale. Because what you said is terrible about More Approved, about your channel, that, you know, got demoted. But I think that no one's really making money in the sewing community on YouTube yet. I mean, it's not like there's not very, I think, to use a phrase that you've used, there's not very deep pockets in the sewing community. It's growing, so there should be. And, you know, it could happen in our lifetime that it becomes a big thing. And, you know, but I think that what's most disheartening about it and what's most discouraging about it isn't the actual changes that have happened this year, but it's sort of the culture of that and the looming nature of they can just change it at any time and you never know what's going to happen. And it is like very, like the changes that they made recently are very, they're like harsh, you know what I mean? Like you're just going to get, when your video gets demonetized, if you don't get 1,000 views the first week, they won't even process your appeal. And my videos are getting demonetized every time I upload. Every video gets demonetized for the first week. Now that's when they get all the views. So that affects my, I'm not going to say income because I don't make an income off of it, but it definitely affects the revenue I'm able to produce when the highest volume of my videos is getting demonetized. I think it's because of the music that I use that it's getting, you know, it's somehow getting flagged until the algorithm can see that it's like, you know, a music that I'm allowed to use. But I think it's very discouraging because when you get into, a lot of people don't know why you make money on YouTube or how you make money on YouTube, but I think that everybody starts sort of with that in the back of their mind, like, you know, this could take me somewhere, this could do something. So if that is always something that you feel is really threatened, I mean, I even kind of felt like, you know, I didn't get taken down this time, but I could get taken down next time. I mean, the threshold is dangerously close to where I'm at.
And that's the other thing. It seems like with these new changes, you're not permanently in the program. If you drop below that 4,000 hour watch time in the last 12 months, it looks like they'll kick you. They'll keep kicking you out and then bringing you back in.
You can get taken out at any time, and it seems like I mean, they changed they changed it 3 times this year. They did, you know, they changed to 10,000 views, and then they cut revenue by like 60% this year on ads.
A lot of people got hit by the apocalypse and again, I know I've seen some comments like, oh, well, you know, it wasn't just because of Logan Paul or whatever that this happened, but at the same time, every time one of these bigger creators makes a misstep like that, that's what gets noticed and that's what scares the advertisers. So even though they might not say it's a direct result of, you know, certain YouTuber X doing something, it really is indirectly affecting all of us because, again, advertisers would not be scared off if there had not been that negative attention there.
Right. And you can't build your foundation on, you know, shifting sand. So if someone wants to go at it, like I said, like it's not necessarily the changes that they made because you're not going to quit your day job to have a channel that has less than, how many followers was it?
Oh, for me?
No,
or, for 1,000 subscribers.
So you're not going to quit. It's not like anyone quit their job because they had 1,000 subscribers, but still it's the understanding that at any time they could change it. At any time they could take it away. They could take away ads altogether. And
or they could change it to like 100,000 subscribers, you know, I mean, just so that like we were talking about, it almost seems like YouTube just wants to be like traditional media now where only the bigger players get to play and the smaller ones don't. Like
tiny steps at a time. And you don't have to have 100,000 followers or at least a year ago, you did not have to have 100,000 followers to be somebody in the you know, you could be a micro influencer with 20,000 followers or 15,000 followers because of your CPM and because if you have a niche channel, advertisers are going to go after a niche channel that has a really laser focused point into their audience. So Joanne, it probably isn't going to go after a lifestyle YouTuber who has 1 million followers. Because they could advertise Joanne to 1 million followers and get no sales from that. It's likely that they could reach 1 million people and not sell a yard of fabric because that's how many.
Those people are all shopping at Zara and Forever 21.
Yeah, but if you went over a sewing influencer who had 5,000 views, that person could easily get something with Joanne because Joanne is then talking to 5,000 of their customers who are engaged and who are interested and who are probably going to buy something from that.
You know, we were talking about this last week. I feel like there needs to be a YouTube only for creative people, like a YouTuber for makers. Like, please somebody create it because we're probably not going to create it.
And I think that is how, if that happened, that would be great because that's how we could sidestep because the thing is, the people who are YouTubers, there are a lot of people on YouTube who are making a lot of money and have a lot of followers just for being morons. You know what I mean? Like they're not
doing anything productive or teaching. They're not bringing any videos of value. Like,
right. And there's a lot of like teenagers who are like millionaires from YouTube just from, you know, doing whatever. Or like on Instagram, there are like, you know, fitness Instagrammers who have like millions of followers and are making a ton of money just from like taking, you know, full length shots of themselves in a full length mirror. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy the amount of money being put in the hands of these like young people who aren't really doing anything that they should be rewarded for. I mean, I know that that's kind of like a harsh thing to say or whatever, but I think that if YouTube is that platform where you get more attention just for doing whatever is craziest or whatever is most controversial or having the most clickbait titles and pictures, I mean, I think that there is definitely this niche, and it's not that niche. Like there's a lot of people who are making videos that are inspirational and artistic and sharing something of substance, some artwork, some process, or some business or whatever. And I definitely think if there was some sort of outlet for that, I think that would be really great too, because then I don't think that we would be as susceptible to, okay, well, someone did something stupid, so everyone's privileges are getting taken away. We're wiping it across the board. Like it's much less likely that if you had a community of artists and makers and people who are actually trying to do something worthwhile with their lives and had a skill set, you know, I don't think that it would be that bad.
I know, and we've talked about this before privately. I know it seems like it's getting very hard for sewing bloggers in general to really make any real money doing that.
Yeah.
And again, that is kind of sad because the more people who could potentially do that, the more people might sew. But it seems like
it bothers me because in the heyday of sewing, if you had a sewing blog, that's just a blog. That's just text, copywriting, and pictures. And you could make money. You could have a full-time income just from the banner ads that you put on your website if you had a blog back then. That was in the heyday. And now, you know, the return that you're getting on the content that you're creating is just going down and down and down because there's so many more. It's kind of like all of that revenue is getting split between all of these different avenues. And there's a lot of people who are just, I mean, I think a lot of people don't really know how it works. So a lot of people are just working for free because they think, oh, well, I'll get the exposure. But if that exposure doesn't lead to any kind of sponsorship or partnerships or collaborations that are worth money, then why do you want the exposure in the first place? I mean,
because if you keep doing that, if that keeps happening within our niche, then no one's ever going to make any money because the brands are just going to keep going to the people who will do it for free.
Exactly.
That are trying to get it. So you might be getting these bigger followings, but where does that get you?
Yeah, if you can't convert that following into some kind of income, fabric's expensive. You know what I mean? And it's not like I said, like there's a lot of people who are just vlogging what they're going to the grocery store or whatever, and you know they can make money from that. If you're a sewing blogger or you share on Instagram, that's a whole other level on top of the actual sewing, which is time consuming and expensive. So, you know, there's definitely going to be a cap on who can participate in that. If a lot of people who are doing it are stay-at-home mothers or people who have jobs, it's kind of a lot to ask to take away from it's a big sacrifice to make, to take the time away, not only just from sewing and not only the money that it costs to do that and the money that it costs to have all of the subscriptions and stuff to keep, you know what I mean, to pay for a website and pay for equipment for your YouTube or a camera for your blog. It's kind of a big sacrifice and it's a lot to ask for nothing in return. I mean, it's not really a hobby if you look at the amount of work that it takes to go into that. And, you know, the blast that you have to be doing, you know, you got to post on Facebook every day, Instagram every day. It's a ton amount of work. So it's not a lot of people who are going to do that for no money. And I think that that's kind of what's sad about it and what bothers me about it, that people are doing it kind of running on this treadmill thinking if I get more followers and I'm going to make money. But it's kind of like a mirage. Like once you get there,
they're just going to keep going to the people who aren't asking for money, and then you don't ever make anything. And I've even noticed that as well. And I've seen a lot of quilters do it too. And I'm like, are you insane? they'll make a very elaborate quilt for, to be at a booth at Quilt Market or to get, regrammed by a brand. And I think that's kind of crazy because, making clothing takes a lot of time. Making quilts takes an insane amount of time. And I don't know. I'm having a hard time understanding where this is all going,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make the time investment and the money investment in something if it's not a business pursuit.
Yeah.
It's just a hobby. And I think that it is possible that there are a lot of people on there who really do just want to get on McCall's feed and have that many people see what they made. And, I definitely think if you're just doing it as a hobby, but I mean, think about the people who are really big in doing this and they still have jobs and or they're stay-at-home moms. Like it's just it's a sidecar to, their regular life. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like I mean, again, I don't really know because I've never done sponsorships and my following is pretty tiny compared to basically anyone. And, I just think that it just seems to me that there doesn't seem to be any kind of, what's the word? Like there doesn't seem to be any kind of, like outset to what people are working toward and what people are trying to get. Like, I mean, I have my YouTube channel because the reason that I keep doing it is because I love making the videos and I love the storytelling and it's actually fun for me. But the end zone of that is like getting a collaboration with one of the big four or getting a book deal or having something like that happen. It's like a goal to work towards. And that's why you work hard and that's why you keep doing it. And I have a business also, you know what I mean? I can't, and that's kind of the thing that I came to last year. I realized like, I can't keep up with the bloggers. I can't make and blog, a garment every week on top of being an actual dressmaker. It would seem like they would go hand in hand and that I could be blogging as a dressmaker and I can make videos based on my work, but I really can't do both because, just as far as the time investment, it has to be one or the other. And following sewing bloggers is very distracting because everybody, when you see it, you want to post one thing a week and you want to have that kind of simple feed of like really satisfying, like fabric to garment, transformations, but you really can't do it if you're actually trying to run a business.
Yeah. And I do want to talk about your business. You are kind of ramping up your bridal collection and I saw you've been doing some sketches and you're coming up with some pieces. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like? Yeah,
I kind of got myself into a pickle because I applied for this bridal show called IndieWed. I've known about IndieWed ever since we moved here like several years ago. It's a bridal show, like a trade show market, but it's for independent, local, handmade stuff. So every time that it's come around to applying for this show every year, I've always just been like, I'm not ready, I'll do it next year. And then this year I applied. I have no idea why I applied to this show, Jen. Like I can't imagine what I was thinking because I thought 0% chance that I was going to get into this show. But I applied because I just thought I have my website up. I'm just going to apply just that I can say I applied. The only goal I had in mind was being able to say that I applied. And I applied and I got in and I couldn't believe it. I still am wondering how I did that because I think that for me, launching my business, it's not like something that you can do in tiny baby steps because just one order is someone's wedding gown. It's a big deal. You know what I mean? It's not something that I can kind of dip my toe in the water. But I'm really, really nervous. I actually was having anxiety. A couple of weeks ago, I was having anxiety every night after putting my kids to bed and I couldn't figure out why. And I think it was because of the show, because I'm so nervous that I'm launching my business too soon and I'm not going to have the time. I mean, look at how hard it was for us to schedule getting on my computer for an hour. You know what I mean? I'm really worried about it. But, the show is coming up in February. I designed a collection for it. I actually have the sketches right here for my these are all from different collections that I've sketched over the years. And I started Bridal a couple of years ago. And I've always had this idea for this collection of bridal separates that you can mix and match. So they're like cocktail dresses with gown skirts. So you can add a skirt to have a gown. And the idea is like you can have a big tulle ball gown for your ceremony and then take it off and it's a cocktail dress for the reception. Or you can wear a long skirt on the courthouse steps for the photo shoot and then go to the brunch afterwards in like a knee-length dress or whatever. So some of those are already made and the rest of them I'm making now. And another really big thing that I'm getting into now is styled shoots. One of the biggest things stopping me for a really long time is not knowing how to photograph things and having to, I would have, you know, what am I going to do? I have to hire a model and pay for a venue and pay a photographer. Like that's the barrier to entry of selling.
And that's really expensive too.
It's outrageous. So actually I'm in a couple of styled shoots now and they're groups. So I'm in these groups and people are saying, I'm doing this shoot, I'm doing that shoot. And they show pictures of what their inspiration is. And I can get dresses into these shoots and have them photographed for free. You know what I mean? Because they are renting dresses from other boutiques and stuff. And if I supply it for free, it's a free gown for them. It's a free photo shoot for me. And that's kind of what everybody, they're calligraphers and florists and people get into them. And then photographers pay tickets to do them so that everyone can get stuff for their portfolio. So,
that's a really good tip for anyone that wants to get their clothing photographed is you guys are essentially kind of bartering. And I think that's a really cool arrangement.
Yeah, anyone in the wedding industry should really get into it because I think that the people who are doing styled shoots are doing it for publication. They want to get into magazines and blogs and as photographers. And I'm kind of feeling now like, I feel like right now it's paying off, something that I've suffered through my entire life. Like sewing made me a loser for like ever. And it made me kind of, you know, growing up, no one else was doing it. And it was weird that I wore clothes that I made and there was no value in it. And there was no return on investment. And there was no reward for doing it for the longest time. For the first 20 years, I've just been doing it because the driving force was my own determination to make something that looked professional, just to be able to say I did it for no reason other than that. And now I've gotten to a point where at these shoots, there's like 10,000 people in this Facebook group. And it's like 9,999 of them are photographers. And there's like this is across America. It's styled shoots across America. And there's only like 5 dressmakers in this group. So it's kind of like, you know, I probably
you're the one in demand now.
Yeah. And it's, you know, because the thing is, they're going to rent from a boutique, but boutiques aren't going to, I mean, they could make a rental fee, but a boutique owner already has publication, already has ads for Maury Lee or Alfred Angelo or whatever brands that they're carrying. And if someone sees in a publication, oh, Maury Lee dress, they're going to go to their local boutique. They're not going to find the boutique that supplied it. So there's really no incentive for dressmaking, for bridal boutiques to like go after these styled shoots. But if I say that I'm a dressmaker and they want something specific, I mean, I'm already lined up to do a couple of these upcoming this spring, and I'm trying to be booked solid so that I can just, no, I don't really know. I'm probably just going to put the images up on my website, maybe on Etsy, and see if they sell as is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that could be business.
And when you're coming up with these samples, like, how does this work? Do you make like one of each thing, or I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's always deterred me from having, you know, from knowing how to move forward with my business. Like to do a size run, I would have to make like 2, 4, 6 at like every size. And then what if one sells? What if one doesn't? I'm just making them in size 6 because that's the block that I have. Mm-hmm. The block that I drafted in school has a 26-inch waist. So I'm making everything in that. And if that can fit their model, then, you know, they can go at it. I mean, that's kind of the good thing about what I'm doing now, because there's a lot of opportunities. You know, there's a lot of shoots that I can send a dress to if it fits or whatever, if it fits the model, if it fits the photo shoot. I can make it specifically for whatever size they want and then, you know, hopefully, I think that the issue that I'm going to come up against is traffic, getting traffic to come to the shop to buy these things. But I'm kind of I'm trying not to overthink it. I'm trying not to worry about it. I'm trying to just do the work, and hopefully that will lead me to the next thing, because going after IndieWed is what led me to these styled shoots. If I hadn't gone after IndieWed, I wouldn't be in a position now where I have opportunities in front of me. So
I think that's a really good way to go after it, because I think a lot of brides are looking for something unique and special. And a lot of these big boutiques just don't offer that. You know, there could be 50 other brides with the same dress they're wearing. And a lot of these people just want something more custom. And I think that's something you certainly can offer them.
Yeah, and not only there could be 50 other brides with that dress, there could be 5,000 brides all wearing different styles dresses, and they still all look the same. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're all strapless, you know, white ball gowns. And that's not really the thing anymore. I think that, you know, it's lace now, and but still, I mean, the thing is, the brides today, your wedding, and you're planning your wedding, the day you get engaged, you've got a vision in your head. But by the time that your wedding approaches you, you're working with a lot of opinions. You know, you've got a lot of different people throwing money into the budget. So it's a compromise between a whole bunch of people, your wedding. So the dress is the one thing that it's most likely the bride is going to pay for herself, or if someone else pays for it, it's the one thing that you can it's like you don't have to tailor it to anybody else. When it comes to the cake, when it comes to the venue, when it comes to the date and the food, you've got to be thinking of everyone. But when you're thinking of your dress, you know, do whatever you want to. And I think that I would love to provide an option for a bride that wants a pink dress, for a bride that wants, you know, that's why I kind of created the collection that I'm showing, because for brides who don't want to spend a couple $1,000s to have a gown custom made, they can order, you know, these mix and match separates to have, you know, a long skirt and then a short skirt. You know what I mean? Like, I try to create it in a way that gives brides a lot of options, because I think that in the wedding industry, I mean, there's a ton of, you know, options as far as like boutiques and, you know, photographers and all these different vendors. But I think that those options are still kind of in a pretty narrow, inside a pretty narrow like box of what the possibilities are.
And how would you kind of describe your style? Like, I've seen I think I kind of get a vibe of what your style is, but how would you put it?
My personal style or my design?
For your like design style.
That's so hard. And I should have an elevator pitch for that too, and I don't have one.
Like, it's very flowy. It's kind of like flowy and like almost kind of free spirited. I've seen you doing some things with lace or even applique. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's always very feminine. I know that that's something that is kind of like, I'm not really a modern designer. I'm sort of feminine, traditional. I think that the most important things to me, you know, the common denominator in all of my dresses is going to be, they're pretty lightweight, they're comfortable. I don't necessarily use dressmaking techniques that are going to be very heavy and stiff and boning and all this other stuff. I put pockets in everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really thinking my design aesthetic is what is the best for the bride and what is the best for the customer. Because I think that, like, pockets, for example, like I just brought up, everyone talks about, like, it has pockets, like that's the most important thing. And that's one of the things about sewing, that your mind is kind of expanded to the fact that you can do anything you want to. And in sewing, people don't think about that. And people don't think about the options and the customization. And, you know, every bride that I've ever designed for has asked me, like, can you do that? Is that possible? Can you do that? And it's like, we can do anything. Anything that you've ever seen can be done. It can be figured out. I mean, you might have to sacrifice somewhere else. You know, you can't have a backless gown that's also strapless. You know what I mean? Like, there's some architectural things that need to be in place. But I think that my design is really practical. It's kind of, and I think that the lace and the flowiness right now, when I started designing, I think that retro was really a big thing. And now it's definitely more festival bride, I think, is more popular, and that's what people are looking for. I think that the gowns that I'm making for the styled shoots are probably going to be more trendy. But as far as that, like, a lot of the gowns I'm seeing are very similar as far as, like, I think that, like, mermaid gowns, and not mermaid gowns like in the old-fashioned sense, but gowns that are flared at the bottom with a long train. I think that that's pretty popular right now. I'm seeing a lot of those on the in the groups where they're scheduling the styled shoots. But I mean, I'm a little bit nervous about the customer I'm going to be contacting at IndieWed, and, you know, it could be anything, you know what I mean? I don't know.
This is super exciting. Well, Lisa, can you share with people what your website is, your Instagram, and we'll link everything too.
I think that my YouTube link is Lisa Emerita Handmade, but I'm Lisa Emerita everywhere. That's my website is lisaemerita.com. On Instagram, I'm at Lisa Emerita, and my YouTube channel is Lisa Emerita, and I think that's it. I'm not everywhere. Like, I'm not on Twitter or, you know, Snapchat or anything like that.
That's all right. You know, I have a Twitter account for Sewing Report, but like there's not, I don't know, there's not a lot much happening on Twitter for sewing people. So I don't know, I'm there.
Really simple. I can't keep up with that. And it's hard for me to keep up with what, you know, I wish that I could post to Instagram every day. I just can't do it. You know what I mean? It's so hard to plan content.
Well, I'm so glad we did this, Lisa. This has been super fun. And again, Sewing Report viewers, if you enjoy this, let me know. And please leave a comment for Lisa, what you think of this. What do you think of this little sewing chat? And we may do more of these in the future. Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jen. This is great.